December 16th, 1985. Midtown Manhattan. Outside a steakhouse glowing under winter lights. Snow clings to the sidewalks. Traffic hums. And in front of Sparks Steakhouse, a quiet execution is about to rewrite the American mafia. A black Lincoln Town car pulls to the curb. Inside sits Paul Castellano, the boss of the Gambino crime family. He is calm, dressed sharply, a man who believes he still controls everything. He is wrong. Across the street, shadows shift. Men in long overcoats wait. Still, silent, watching. They are not strangers. They are soldiers. And tonight, they are here for their own boss. The story does not begin here. It begins years earlier, inside the rigid hierarchy of New York's 5 families. The Gambino family was once ruled by Carlo Gambino, a calculating and deeply respected leader. Under him, the organization thrived. Extortion, construction rackets, labor unions, a criminal empire operating quietly beneath the surface of American life. But when Gambino died in 1976, everything changed. Instead of appointing his underboss, he named his cousin, Paul Castellano, as the new boss. It was a decision that shocked many, especially one man, Aniello Delacroce. Delacroce represented the old guard, street guys, violent, loyal, traditional. Castellano was different. He was known as the Howard Hughes of the mob. He avoided the streets, avoided violence when possible, preferred boardroom-style control. He operated from a mansion in Staten Island. He valued white-collar crime. And most importantly, he despised drug dealing. To Castellano, narcotics brought attention. Attention brought the FBI, and the FBI brought destruction. But on the streets of Brooklyn, things looked very different. A rising crew of ambitious mobsters saw drugs not as a risk, but as opportunity. And at the center of that world was a man named John Gotti. John Gotti was not subtle. He dressed loud, spoke loud, moved through the streets like a celebrity. But behind a flash was a ruthless operator. He ran a crew out of the Bergen Hunt and Fish Club in Queens. Hijackings, loan sharking, drug distribution through associates. Money was flowing, and Castellano was watching closely. The federal government tightens its grip. The Federal Bureau of Investigation launches deeper surveillance into organized crime. Wiretaps, informants, financial tracking, and then a break. Investigators begin building a massive case. The Commission case, a sweeping indictment targeting the leadership of New York's mafia families. At the center of it, Paul Castellano. He is facing serious prison time. And inside the Gambino family, pressure builds. Leadership is uncertain. Power is shifting. And Castellano begins to make dangerous moves. He isolates himself, cuts off communication, refuses to meet with key captains, including John Gotti. That is not just disrespect. In mafia culture, it is a threat. At the same time, Castellano becomes increasingly suspicious. He believes drug dealing is spreading within his own ranks. And he is right. Members of Gotti's crew, including Angelo Ruggiero, are deeply involved in narcotics. The problem? They are being recorded. Wiretaps, detailed conversations, names, deals, prices, evidence that could destroy the family. And worse, it links directly back to Gotti. Castellano hears about the tapes, and his reaction is immediate. Fury. In the mafia, drugs are not just a violation. They are a death sentence. Castellano begins discussing punishment. Severe punishment. Possibly executions. Word spreads quickly. He's talking about killing them, someone whispers. Inside the Bergen Club, the mood shifts. For John Gotti, this is no longer business. This is survival. At the same time, another critical figure dies. November 1985. Aniello Delacroce, the underboss. The bridge between Castellano and the street crews. Gone. And with him, the last layer of protection. Now Gotti stands exposed. No mediator. No protection. No buffer. Only a boss who no longer trusts him. In mafia tradition, loyalty to the boss is absolute. But there is another rule. If the boss becomes a threat to the family, he can be removed. Quietly. Decisively. Behind closed doors, conversations begin. Whispers. Meetings in back rooms. Parking lots. Apartments. The idea forms slowly, then clearly, then inevitably. Paul Castellano must die. But this is not a simple hit. This is the boss of one of the most powerful crime families in America. Killing him, without approval from the commission, is a declaration of war. If done wrong, it could trigger retaliation from every major mafia family. Still, Gotti moves forward, carefully, calculating every detail. He surrounds himself with trusted men. Sammy Gravano, Frank DeCicco, men who understand the risk, men who understand the reward. The plan must be perfect. No mistakes, no witnesses who matter, no trail leading back. Surveillance begins. Castellano's routines are studied, his movements tracked, his meetings monitored. Patterns emerge, and one detail stands out. December 16th, dinner at Spark Steakhouse. With key associates. A predictable moment, a rare moment, when the boss steps outside his fortress. Gotti makes the decision. This is the night. Hit teams are assembled, multiple shooters, backup vehicles, escape routes mapped across Manhattan. Each man assigned a position, each movement rehearsed. And one final detail, Gotti himself will be nearby, watching, ensuring it is done right. Because in the mafia, power is not given, it is taken. As the night approaches, the tension builds. Inside cars, inside jackets, inside minds. Weapons are checked, routes reviewed again. No one speaks more than necessary. Some understand the weight of what they are about to do. Others only understand the order. Back in Staten Island, Paul Castellano prepares for dinner. He has no idea that his own family has already decided his fate. No warning, no second chance. The car pulls away, headed toward Manhattan, toward Spark Steakhouse, toward history. Across the river, John Gotti waits, watching the clock, watching the streets, watching everything. Because tonight, the inner circle will break. And when it does, there will be no going back. The boss is about to walk into his own execution, and the men pulling the trigger will not be outsiders. They will be his own. December 16th, 1985, 5:26 p.m., Midtown Manhattan. The air is sharp, cold enough to sting. Outside Spark Steakhouse, everything is already in motion. Parked cars line the street. Pedestrians pass without noticing, but hidden among them are killers. Inside a nearby vehicle, John Gotti watches. Calm, focused. He is not holding a weapon. He doesn't need to. Tonight, his power is in the order he already gave. Positioned along the sidewalk. For gunmen, dressed in long coats, hats pulled low, their faces unreadable. Among them are men tied closely to Gotti's crew, including shooters later identified as part of the hit team organized through Sammy Gravano. Each man knows exactly what to do. No hesitation, no mistakes. At 5:27 p.m., a black Lincoln pulls up. Inside, Paul Castellano. Next to him, his driver and underboss-to-be, Thomas Bellotti. The engine idles. For a brief moment, everything is still. Then the doors open. Castellano steps out. He adjusts his coat, looks toward the restaurant entrance. A routine night, a routine dinner. He never sees them coming. The gunmen move instantly. Fast, controlled. Two approach Castellano. Two move toward Bellotti. Gunfire erupts. Loud, violent, relentless. Castellano is struck multiple times. His body jerks, then collapses onto the sidewalk. Bellotti tries to react. Too late. He is hit before he can draw a weapon. He falls beside the car. The entire attack lasts seconds. Witnesses freeze. Some scream. Others run. But most don't fully understand what they just saw. Because this wasn't random violence. This was precision. This was a message. The shooters do not panic. They do not rush. They walk away calmly. Disappear into waiting vehicles. Gone before police sirens even begin to echo. Across the street, John Gotti watches. Silent, unmoved. For a brief moment, he stares at the bodies. At the man who once controlled the most powerful mafia family in America. Now lying dead on a Manhattan sidewalk. Then Gotti turns, gets into his car, and leaves. Within minutes, the city erupts. Police flood the area. Detectives push through crowds. Flashing lights reflect off snow and glass. Two bodies, multiple shell casings, a high-profile location, and one terrifying realization. The boss of the Gambino crime family has just been assassinated in public. For law enforcement, This is unprecedented. Even in the violent history of organized crime, bosses are not killed like this. Not openly. Not without approval. Inside the Federal Bureau of Investigation, agents immediately understand the implications. This is not just a murder. This is a power shift, and possibly the beginning of a war. Within hours, news spreads across New York, then across the country. Television broadcasts show the crime scene. Headlines explode. Mafia boss gunned down. But inside mafia circles, the reaction is different. Quiet, cold, strategic, because everyone knows what this means. Someone ordered this. Someone powerful enough to break one of the most sacred rules. The commission, the governing body of the mafia, had not approved this hit, which means whoever did this acted alone, and that is dangerous. Inside other families, leaders begin to talk. The Genovese crime family, the Lucchese crime family, the Colombo crime family, the Bonanno crime family, all watching closely, all asking the same question. Who did this? The answer comes quickly. John Gotti. He doesn't hide. He doesn't deny. In fact, he makes himself visible. Days after the murder, Gotti is seen publicly, walking the streets, dressed sharply, confident. It is a statement, a declaration. The throne is no longer empty. Inside the Gambino family, the transition happens fast. Meetings are held. Alliances are confirmed. Dissent is silenced. Gotti positions himself as the new boss. Not quietly, but boldly. He surrounds himself with loyal men. Sammy Gravano becomes a key figure. Frank DeCicco takes on a central leadership role. Together, they stabilize the family, at least on the surface. But beneath that surface, tension remains, because not everyone agrees with what happened. Some see Castellano's murder as necessary. Others see it as reckless, a violation of tradition. And the commission is watching closely. There are discussions, quiet conversations about retaliation, about sending a message. Because if one boss can be killed without approval, then no boss is safe. For a moment, it feels like war could erupt, but doesn't. Instead, something unexpected happens. The other families accept it, reluctantly, strategically, because Gotti has already secured his position, and challenging him now could lead to chaos. So the commission chooses stability over revenge, at least for now. But law enforcement does not. The FBI intensifies its focus. Surveillance increases. Informants are pushed harder. Wiretaps expand. Because now, they're not just dealing with organized crime. They are dealing with a man bold enough to kill a boss in public. John Gotti becomes their top priority. Agents begin building a case. Piece by piece. Conversation by conversation. They know one thing for certain. Men like Gotti do not stop. And eventually, they make mistakes. Back on the streets, Gotti's legend grows. The media gives him a name, the Dapper Don. He smiles for cameras, walks into courtrooms like a celebrity, beats early charges, avoids conviction. To the public, he becomes larger than life. But inside the FBI, he becomes something else, a target. Because behind the suits, behind the confidence, behind the power, is a man who ordered the execution of his own boss. And sooner or later, that decision will come back to him. The hit at Spark Steakhouse didn't just change the Gambino family. It changed everything. Because from that moment forward, the rules of the mafia were no longer absolute. And when rules disappear, so does control. The empire still stands. But cracks are forming. Invisible. Growing. Waiting. And inside those cracks are secrets. Secrets that, if exposed, could destroy everything John Gotti just built. New York City. The power shift is complete. John Gotti now sits at the top of the Gambino crime family. A boss who rose through blood. A boss who broke the rules. And a boss who believes he is untouchable. On the surface, everything looks strong. Money flows. Crews operate smoothly. The family remains one of the most powerful criminal organizations in America. But behind closed doors, the pressure is building. The Federal Bureau of Investigation has shifted strategy. No longer chasing small cases. No longer focusing on street-level crimes. Now, they are targeting leadership. And Gotti is at the center. Surveillance teams follow him constantly. Cars rotate. Agents document every movement. Meetings. Associates. Locations. Nothing is ignored. But Gotti thrives on attention. He appears outside the Bergen Hunt and Fish Club almost daily, talking, laughing, performing. He trusts his inner circle, especially one man, Sammy Gravano. Gravano is different, quiet, calculating, a man who understands both violence and survival. He was there when decisions were made. He helped plan the hit on Paul Castellano. He stood beside Gotti as power was taken, and now he is standing close enough to hear everything. The FBI makes a breakthrough. Inside an apartment above the Rave Night Social Club, they install listening devices, hidden microphones, sensitive enough to capture whispers. For the first time, they are inside Gotti's world, and what they hear changes everything. Gotti talks freely, too freely. He discusses operations, names associates, describes crimes, and then he talks about the past, about the night at Spark Steakhouse, about the decision, about the order. The boss who believed he was safe is now building the case against himself. Agents listen for hours, days, weeks, tape after tape, conversation after conversation. They begin assembling something powerful, not just evidence, but a narrative, a story of control, of conspiracy, of murder. And at the center of it all, John Gotti. December 1990. The move is made. Federal agents move in. Simultaneous arrests. Multiple locations. Gotti is taken into custody, along with key members of his organization, including Sammy Gravano. This time, it is different. The charges are serious. Racketeering, murder, conspiracy, and the evidence is overwhelming. But inside the system, there is still doubt. Because Gotti has beaten cases before, witnesses disappear, jurors are influenced, cases collapse. He earns a new nickname, the Teflon Don. Nothing sticks. But this time, something changes. Inside a federal holding cell, Sammy Gravano makes a decision that will destroy everything. He cooperates. Gravano becomes a government witness, one of the highest-ranking mafia members in American history to do so. His testimony is devastating. He confirms everything: the structure of the family, the operations, the murders, and most importantly, the execution of Paul Castellano. He gave the order, Gravano says, referring to Gotti. For prosecutors, this is the missing piece, because now they don't just have tapes. They have a witness from inside the inner circle. The trial begins in 1992. Inside a federal courtroom, the empire is put on display. Jurors listen to recordings, hear Gravano's testimony, see the structure of organized crime laid out in detail. For the first time, the myth of invincibility begins to crack. Gotti sits quietly, expression controlled, but the weight of the evidence is undeniable. After weeks of testimony, the jury reaches a verdict: guilty on all counts: murder, racketeering, conspiracy. The man who ordered the execution outside Spark Steakhouse is now facing the end of his own power. The sentence is swift: life imprisonment, without parole. John Gotti is transferred to federal prison. His reign is over. Inside the Gambino family, the consequences are immediate. Leadership fractures, trust disappears, paranoia spreads. Because if an underboss can betray a boss, then no one is safe. The old rules are gone, the code of silence broken, and the organization weakens. Over time, the influence of the Gambino family declines. Law enforcement pressure increases. Cases multiply. The era of powerful public mafia bosses begins to fade, and it all traces back to one decision. December 16th, 1985. Outside Spark Steakhouse, a boss was executed, not by enemies, but by his own. An order given in secret, inside a trusted inner circle. A decision meant to secure power. But in the end, it exposed everything. Because in the world of organized crime, power is temporary, loyalty is conditional, and betrayal is inevitable. John Gotti died in prison in 2002. Sammy Gravano entered witness protection after serving time. Paul Castellano remains a symbol of a different era, an era where rules still mattered, at least until they didn't. And the streets of New York never forgot the night when the mafia killed its own king.